Dear writer, you need to quit. This is the show that helps you know what to quit, what to keep, and what to question. My name is Becca Syme, and I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach with thousands of hours of coaching 6 and 7 figure authors, mid-listers, major award winners, and new authors alike because everyone needs to quit something. Anyone can tell you what worked for them, and of course, they say it might not work for you, but they can't tell you why. Well, I can tell you why. Welcome to the Quitcast. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Quitcast. Today we are talking about woo, winning others over. It's one of the themes from the Clifton Strengths Assessment, and we're going to talk about how it applies to writers today. So if you or someone you know or love has woo, please tune in to listen to how Terry and Becca describe what woo looks like. And then we're going to jump into the Strengths for Writers talk show, where we talk with 3 successful authors who have the strength and how it works in their writing and book marketing. So take it away, Terry and Becca.
All right,
So
so what are we
winning
thinking?
others over, or the woo strength, which is an acronym. It's the only strength that's an acronym. But I also think that it's sort of not an acronym, right? Like wooing, the word, is not just like it's an actual word, right? Like it's not just winning others over. But I think they like to say winning others over because it feels more safe than actually saying to woo, right?
Right.
But to woo is really what woos do.
Woo is more accurate than the
Yeah.
winning others over. I mean, they
Winning
do it, but
others
yes.
over. The thing I like about the winning others over part of the acronym is that there is that over word that I think is important. It's that there's a capitulation. So I always feel like woos are looking for that moment or aware of that moment when you have or have not been over, right? Like capitulated to them, and their whole like presence of being an influencing strength is understanding my impact on other people and the ability that I have to, and not just me as a woo, but everyone has an ability to affect other people so that they have a more positive experience with you than a negative experience, for instance. And woos are very conscious of what that looks like.
It's really a beginning. A woo is right out of the gate. It's the fast. It's as soon as they enter a room, woo is there on to make sure, and then it starts to assess, and it'll look for people that it knows, and if it knows people, it'll go. Yeah, it's fascinating strength to watch. And especially when you know that it exists, right? And then to guess when people have it, you can tell who has it. It's the person that I was at a little get together. There were like 20 people. None of them knew each other really. We all were friends with the host, and you could tell who right away. They were the one that came in, slapped the host on the back, and then went from person to person, spending time. Hi, how are you? How do you know so and so? And it was a great icebreaker because then they were able to also then say, oh, that's just like so and so that I just met. And then they brought that together. Healthy woo is a very impressive thing for sure, but it's definitely right out of the gate whenever you are in any sort of setting, right? Which is kind of cool. Like, because some people
It's the
wait for
icebreaker.
certain strengths to be activated, or they say, oh, I can't do this because I don't have activator, but woo activates itself immediately.
Yeah, it's the icebreaker strength. And I love that description as well of not just that I'm conscious of meeting everyone and liking everyone, but also of connecting them to each other, because woos are so conscious of the fact that not everyone likes breaking the ice in conversations. So like, and I know this is going to be, Becca talks about Clubhouse all the time. I get that. But I just did a
What's
video
that?
recording about Clubhouse, and specifically one of the things I love about being on stage in Clubhouse or having watching a really good moderator is that ability to draw people together when they're having a conversation with each other. So I love being able to say like, oh, hey, Terry said that, or, oh, it sounds like you have this in common with Keldy, or it sounds like Jen and you have the same interests. Because to me, then that means they can start communicating without me. Like the ice has been broken between the two of them, and I no longer have to be the social catalyst or the social lubricant between them. So I 100% believe that woo is in my top 10. And and for me, woo is very much like a yes, I'm conscious about how other people are won over. How much do they like me? Because I like everybody, right? This is what we said in the author talk show. Like, we all like everyone immediately when we meet them. And there's so much like of that genuineness of just liking everyone that's like, oh my gosh, I like you. I want to spend time with you. That when it's genuine, like it is with most woos, I would say most woos are like this. Uh, we're genuinely interested. We genuinely want to know about you and want to hear about you. And as Terry has often said in the how to win friends and influence people sort of style, right? People want to talk about themselves. They want to deliver content of their own. So you allowing that to happen is fun for them, right?
Yeah, and I can definitely attest to that. If you don't know woo people and you don't have woo, what Becca just said might seem strange. Like and there's certain strengths like relator that what you just said makes no sense. And it
Yeah.
still makes me laugh and makes no sense. And yet when I see you, I know because we're friends and we've been at settings with things,
Yeah.
you genuinely do like people
Oh
right
yeah.
off the start. And it's a very like an innocent kind of feel to it. And if you
Yes.
don't have woo, if you have woo, you understand what's happening. You get it. If
Yes.
you don't have woo, you don't get what she just said makes no sense. And then that's why some of the strengths are confused by it, and because I laugh because I'm like, there she goes. When she comes back, she really does like that person. And then I start to say, what do they do? What did this happen? Have you seen them before? And you're like, what are you talking about? I don't know. And then
Yeah.
eventually things change as you get to know them, right? But definitely it is that innocence, that kind of, and I can see that we talk about one of the other strengths, positivity, being kind of Pollyanna-ish is a little bit. I think one of the barrier labels of a woo could be they're naive, they're unaware of
Right.
what's going
Especially
on.
socially.
Yes,
Right.
socially, but it's definitely heartfelt. Like it's a very
Oh yeah.
interesting thing. And it's funny too, as you were mentioning
Yeah.
what it did, we talk about power pairs sometimes, right? I mean, individualization gets along really well, includer gets along really well,
Yep.
communication will get along really well,
Yep.
connectedness will get along really well. There's a lot of things that can power up with woo to be very
Yeah.
effective. And I also do think of it like activator because social setting, but a
Yeah.
different way from activator. And I've seen woo get offended by activator, which is kind of interesting.
Woo is definitely like a more social set. You see it come out more in social settings. So, of course, being in the middle of the pandemic right now, when we're recording this, the social settings have been a little more hard to come by, and that's also one of the reasons that I think I've enjoyed Clubhouse so much, is that it's that feeling of the energy in a room when there's a whole bunch of people all focused in the same direction, or the strangers. Being in a room of strangers for a woo is extremely exciting. Like, it is definitely
It's a high, it's a rush,
it's a high, it's a rush.
it's an adrenaline, it's a stimulating thing. And this is why, and I shouldn't bring it up, but I'll mention it, this is why Clubhouse is so exciting. It appeals to certain strengths, and woo is one of them. And who knows if Clubhouse has been out for a while. It's really exciting now because woos have found a place to go and do their thing, woo, in this while they're stuck in their homes, which is a key thing because it's a great example of how woo's full of energy. Woo gets its energy from meeting people. Imagine the setting that we're in right now when there's a lot of people that are feeling depressed or sad or not themselves. And often we're finding that it's coming from their woo. Their woo's not being engaged and doesn't feel
Yeah.
appreciated. So that's a key thing too, but it's definitely genuine and sincere.
Oh yeah. And there's a piece of woo that is, this is why I said strangers. Like, I think that the opportunity to meet new people, and again, this, I have to be really cautious. It's not that woos want to meet everyone. Like, that's definitely not the thing. It's that everyone they meet, they immediately want to like and know more about, right? Like, so they may have a sorting process of some kind, where like there are certain people that I can just tell they're not going to be my people from the beginning. And so I don't even try to like, uh, be their friend or talk to them. Or if I do talk to them, I very quickly realize like we're not simpaticos. So we need to just sort of like the way that they put it in the author talk show, which I loved, was if you're not my people, I don't want to woo you. So woo is not necessarily like I need to go after and woo everyone. And I think we get this sort of negative car salesman vibe from woo sometimes when we talk about it, as though I'm going to woo you against your will. And that's definitely not like a balcony woo thing. A balcony woo it's a symbiotic relationship. If you like me and I like you, then I'm willing to do the work to make sure that we have a deeper, more intimate relationship so that we can be friends, because I do want to be friends with a lot of people. That's stuff. Tell us who you are and what you write.
Okay, so my name is Olivia and I write romantic suspense mainly. I live in France and I have been living here for such a long time I can sound like them now. My woo is number one.
I'm Shalina. I write under T.S. Valmond, and my genres are sci-fi, fantasy, YA fantasy, and my woo is number two.
My woo is number two as well, and I write sci-fi romance and kind of transitioning into contemporary and then later on paranormal. So all the romance. Yeah.
So I am officially the lowest woo on this call, which is going to be fun because I'm not used to woo. Just for those of you who haven't heard this before, woo is very rare, right? It's in the bottom 10 in strengths overall, in the overall community. It's lower than that among writers. It's in the bottom, I think 6 or 7 among writers, which probably doesn't surprise any of us. We're probably all used to being the only woo in our friend group. Among writers, which is pretty normal. But winning others over, of course, as a strength is all about you as a person and wanting you to know that I like you and I'm on your side and we're friends, and wanting people to be happy, right? A lot of woos are very socially outgoing and like to have people connected to each other. And so just sort of offhanded, if you were to explain what woo is to you, and let's start with Miranda, how would you explain woo to somebody who doesn't know what it is?
When it comes to woo, I think it's seeing an individual, a new face, and going in with the intention of establishing some sort of basic human connection, to the point that I make them feel seen, I make them part of the group, I want to learn about them, I want to, and like in a genuine way. It's a woo is somebody who wants to meet all the people and become close friends with some, and I guess running mates with others, but all the people. It doesn't really matter who. There's really no standard. But yeah, I mean, it's just going out and making new friends pretty much everywhere you go. And friend also, we know, is a loose term.
Yes. Friend to a woo is like everyone, right?
Yes.
Like,
yes, it could be anyway from
people.
the bag, like grocery bagger, all the way to somebody I would like lay my life down for. So
right.
We use it very loosely in the woo community, much to the chagrin of other strengths that shall not be mentioned.
Yeah. But we mean it. And I love that you said genuine, because for me, and I think all woos would agree with this, it doesn't feel fake to me. Like, I genuinely like everyone that I meet. And so to me, it's like I don't feel that disconnect that other people might feel. So I think saying like it's a genuine thing, I really just love people. Like, it's fun. In fact, I think it was Shalina, we were having a conversation about input once, where I said like input woo likes to collect people in sort of the way that, yeah, and Miranda too, because you're high input. So like, I almost feel like that's what am I the most interested in as an input, then what do I collect? Right. So as a woo, I'm the most interested in human beings. So yeah, Shalina, if you were to explain woo to someone, how would you kind of explain it?
I usually say something along the lines of, it's kind of my superpower. It gives me the ability to go into a large room full of people, a crowd, and make friends. And I can do that if it's a conference, if it's an auditorium, if it's a stadium, there's always somebody there who's going to leave and say, hey, I just made a friend tonight or today, wherever we are. And again, it is very genuine. There are people, most of the time, I feel some sense of obligation to even follow up with people that I've met even briefly, maybe not on the same scale as I do my 20-year friends. I kind of have a scale of like how long you've been in my life determines how much time I can devote to maintaining the friendship, but they're still a friend. Even if we don't touch base again for another 5 to 10 years, I look back on that person as a friend and I will seek them out if I see them again.
Yeah, Olivia, you're one of the first woos that I ever met in the writing community. And the way that every time someone says anything about French translation in any author group I've ever been in, everyone always tags you. So I feel like everyone in the author community knows Olivia. And so you're doing a very good job of wooing everyone, which I love. Like, how would you explain woo to people who don't understand it?
For us, a stranger is a friend we have yet to meet.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So I will talk to, okay, Richard jokes that I can have a conversation with a lamppost, like, are you okay with your hours of working? And don't you mind the dog peeing on your feet? And, whatever a lamppost would, so I have conversations with everybody. I have conversation with the woman at the register when I get out of the supermarket. And my daughter is always very uncomfortable. She says, but why do people feel they have to tell you their life story? And it's because I'm listening and because I'm interested, and I'm really genuinely interested. And I find everybody's fascinating. Even the really nasty people are fascinating, because you're thinking, why are they acting like that when it's so easy to be smiling and saying, oh, I'm sorry, I've got to rush because whatever, and just don't shove people away. So yeah, I like people. I love the author community. I love that all my friends are INTJ and I'm the only one speaking. and
I love that. I love that. I would say that's very true too. Like all of you, all three of you, when I know people who know you, it's like that connection of knowing a woo is like everyone in your pocket will know you, because you will take the initiative. Like we call woos are the social initiative takers, right? They're the icebreakers. So I have no fear about talking to a new person in terms of like I might be conscious of the fact that I don't know anyone in a room, but I'm not hesitant, right, to talk to someone. And I think, Miranda, you put it this way once about like, if I can find a place I have a connection with someone, that then it makes it easier for us to have a conversation. And I see that in all of you with woos. Like we're always looking for that. What can I talk to you about? What are you interested in? How can I break that initial ice? And I think that's one of the benefits of being woo. So what's interesting about where that comes from a strengths perspective, like what's the purpose underneath that behavior, is that understanding of capitulation. And I talk about this a lot with writers who have woo, is you have an ability to understand when someone is fully capitulated to you and when they aren't. When are they hesitant and when are they like, I'm all in, I'm all your friend. What that does to us as writers, and I'm really interested to hear about how this works for each of you, but what that does to us as writers is it gives us an understanding of the arc of relationships that I feel like is very specific. It's super helpful in like romance, where often one party has to woo the other party into like that end of reluctance, right? Miranda, I know you write that, right? So how do you see that happening in your writing?
It's prevalent in everything that I do. And I know that it is romance, but it's usually one-sided, where the woman is not interested and the male is chasing her. So he consistently woos her throughout the entire book. And it's just the same thing book after book, because I, as a woo, never get wooed. And so that is something that I like. That is something that I want. And as a writer, we create our own fantasies. And so when I write a romance, I want to be the one that's actually being pursued for once. So I do that with the males. And I usually hide it under fated mate, but really it's just him being a woo and him like he's trying to get his true love. So
Win her over, right?
yeah, he is.
Because there is that resistance that happens. All of us woos know what that looks like, right? I know when I reach a hesitancy with somebody and then I'm like, oh, how do I get past that? Because what I really want is to be their friend. Like I want to continue that relationship. So if you think about in any kind of relationship, friendship or romantic that you write as a woo, you have an ability to quantify that hesitancy and then the warmth rush that happens when you finally feel like, oh, they let me in to the castle, like that. We talk a lot about woo and relator being opposites, right? Where relators have those castles that they want to have like very tough to pass trust tests. And woos are like, let me into that place. I want to get into that place. And so like knowing what that resistance kind of looks like and then how to write that is really, and Olivia, you also write romance arcs. Do you feel like you see yourself using that woo in your writing?
I was talking about cast in the books. I was speaking with Krista Wick, who writes very, very small, and she can write a whole romance with only 2 characters in the book, and there's only the 2 of them. And wow. My books have 50 characters, and that's one of the complaints I have, because I'm not only casting people who will come in the next book. I just live in a world where you have friends and people come and you have phone calls. So my characters have friends and cousins and relationship, or they have jobs where they talk to other people. I'm not sure the guys are such wooers in my books, but there's a big, if you were going to make a movie out of my book, you need a big cast. I mean, it's not Game of Thrones, obviously, but but I think what I transfer into the books that way is all those characters and conversations with everyone, even when you're pumping gas, talking to the guy who's got the bike and saying, oh, I love the chrome you put on this, or so it's exchange with others.
I love that. Shalina, what about you? How do you see woo in your writing?
Like Olivia, all my books have very large casts. Everyone interacts with a lot of people.
I do too.
Every character is, for the most part, named because they matter to someone,
Oh my gosh, yes.
A lot of names. My name bank is like ridiculous. I'm constantly looking for new names, new connections. And my friends who write, my complaint with them is always that there's not enough people. Like, where are the friends of this person? Where is their family? Where are their cousins? Where are the people that they interact with? And how come they're not showing up in this story? And how come they were in the last book, but they didn't show up in this one? It's the same series. I expect the same, the cast to keep growing like my books do. But for the most part, the wooing happens between friends. It happens between former lovers. It happens between new lovers. There's always some wooing going on. And a lot of that trying to win someone over in the story for whatever reason, but it can be, I have all ages in my books. So there's a lot of different kinds of relationships.
So this may be a question that both woo and communication would overlap in, which is okay, because I'm sure we'll talk about the communication one as well. But I'm wondering if you each are aware of having to woo your reader into the book. Like, how conscious are you of the very beginning of your book being the place where they either capitulate to you or don't?
I always start it didn't start this way, but it is now. It's like a theme in my SFR. The first line is usually something very, it sets the tone for the entire book. If the main character, if she's sassy, it's going to be something that's extremely, that is all that, and maybe with some profane language, just to kind of, let's just put that out there, so they know what they're getting into. But if you find that amusing, if that is what you want, then that will grab you, and then you will stay there. But it'll also, my other job is to, I don't want the people that don't want me. So, because my woo doesn't, it will woo people as a challenge, and I'm okay with that. But if I know they don't want me, I do not try to woo them. I'm very selective with my woo.
Yep.
And because Shalina and I have talked about this, we only have so much energy and time to give. So I'm careful with mine.
Yeah, that's a common misconception about woo, is that all woos have that, like, I need to know everyone, and like almost like that pathological networker, right? Who's just like every single person. But the core of woo is not about the volume, it's about the capitulation, right? It's about the difference of like, I like people, I like everyone. If you come across me, I want to know if we're going to be friends or not, right? But it's the and I so agree with this. It'll be interesting to hear if anybody's different, but I never want to be around people who don't want to be around me. I don't want readers who don't want me. And I agree with you, but I'm very conscious on my first page of trying to give them a sense of whether they're in the right place or not. Like, because if you like me, you'll really like me. And if you don't, then you don't belong here. And so do you feel like Shalina and Olivia, do you do that as well?
I think I do that even in the copy, like the copy, the titles, the cover, like I am, sincerely looking for the people who like the tropes that I like. And I put that right up front in the beginning. I hope my first page is saying that, but I don't rely on my first page. I'm looking at the whole package as the thing to get the readers that would be most happy with me.
Yeah, Olivia as well.
I do a weird thing, or maybe it's not that weird. I usually trash my first chapter at the end of the book. Like, my first chapter is me warming up and kind of introducing to myself the characters and where I'm going. And usually by the time I'm halfway through the book, or at the end, the first chapter gets trashed. So that slow introduction I have when I'm actually telling myself the story vanishes, and you're thrown in from the deep end. So if you don't like it, but I agree, if you're not going to like me, then just go away. I'm not going to give you a hard sale. There's things I can't do, like, and I'm not casting a stone. I mean, if people who can, some people love dark romance. I think it's glorifying the syndrome, the Stockholm syndrome. I will not write it, and I will not write abusive men unless I get to kill them further in the book. then I'm okay for writing them. But so if that's what you're looking for, you're not going to find it with me.
Send them my way. Send them my way.
Yeah, I was going to say, Miranda will take care of that.
People would be surprised at how often we kill people. Like, woos love to kill people.
I know. It's so fun. It's funny too, though, because I feel like there is a woo estimation of like what's going to make the reader really engaged here. Like, what's going to make the story come deeper, like come farther in with me. And sometimes death is necessary to make that happen fictionally, right? I'm not encouraging anyone to kill anyone.
No.
Please, in real life, but kill all the people that you want to in your books by all means. But I do think that woos understand how emotions work in that way, to know that if you're very interested in a character, that I have something at stake if they're in danger. So I know how to walk that line. And then I know sometimes that like the killing of a character makes the story deeper or have them more at stake or whatever. So I might think differently about it than someone with other strengths, because I have a motivation of like drawing them farther into the book, which is interesting. So because woo obviously manifests more obviously in personal interactions, I'm really interested to hear how each of you use woo in your marketing. Specifically, if you are aware of using it, and if you're not, that's fine. But if you're aware of using woo as a marketer with either, like Shalina said, with your copy, right? Like, how do you see that manifesting?
And start with that one. I in the beginning, in the early days when I didn't know what I was doing, I realized later on what I'd missed. And that was a key thing, was the copy and getting the language to resonate with people who are looking for the same kinds of things that I read and write. And so I've since gone back and fixed all the previous copy that I've done. But I find that the readers who are drawn to me usually find it right away. It's on the cover somewhere. They see the spaceship. They see the swords. They know what they're getting from that level, and then the next level in the copy is the trope. They see what's going to be, who's the hero. Usually it's a heroine. Who's the heroine of the story, and what's her personality like. And if that draws them in, then they're usually interested in reading the book. And all of my books have similar themes, but as far as the woo encompassing idea, all of mine have, like I said earlier, large casts, lots of people, lots of friends. If you're not in love with one character, there's probably somebody in the group that you don't really like.
I got you, right? Like if you don't like them, hang on for a chapter. There will be somebody else. Yeah, I like that. Miranda, what about you? Are you aware of how you use woo in marketing?
I think for me, it's really difficult to separate the number 2 woo and the number 3 communication. I really have a hard time. And so with that being said, my ad copy is usually really on point and with pretty much with ease. I've done a blurb, sent it to a friend, and she's like, how long did that take you? I said, well, 5 minutes. It's my first draft. Give me a second. And she got really upset. And so like playfully, but she was like, are you serious? And I was like, well, yeah. And writing in first person makes it even easier for me to really push the meaning behind things. And so I think because marketing consists of words, the woo and communication is so intertwined. It's hard for me to answer that, but yes, I do, in my word usage, my tone, my pacing. I write, as far as the market is concerned, I try to hit dead center. So some of that is going to be based on what is expected of that genre. So I will do that. So that will kind of keep me in, a certain boundary. But when it comes to the words and any of that type of marketing, then yes, the woo, it comes through on that. And with the communication to back it up. So
yeah, it's super unusual to have woo without communication. It's much more typical to have communication without woo. But usually if you see woo, you see communication within 5 or 6 spots just because they have so much overlap. And the overlap is very much about audience expectations and being able to read what people are thinking or feeling based on how they speak or how they look. So with communication, it's very much a hearing, oral audio kind of, I can hear the tone difference or the way that you respond or how you word choice, right? For communication. With woo, it's very much like an interest thing. Like I can just gauge both from visually and often in words, I can gauge how engaged you are. I heard this great quote today that there's a difference between interest and engagement. So I can be interested in something, like I scroll past it on YouTube and I might be interested. I might even click on it for a second and watch it. But unless you can engage me, I'm not going to continue on and continue to capitulate to you, right? So woos are always aware of those little micro responses of like, ooh, I didn't like you used this word last time and not this time. What was that about? Like in your reviews, you use this word a lot. Like, does that mean that you didn't like this as much as you liked the other book? Like very conscious even of how feedback is given and stuff like that. So I do think it's harder to separate those two because there's so much overlap between where they really are good. And it's not as necessary for like the general population to know what's the real difference between those two, as much as it is like you're so in tune with feedback loops and how to read feedback loops as a woo communication. And even to the point where like it wouldn't surprise me if Olivia and Shalina were also very good at writing blurbs quickly, because one of the pieces of woo and communication is being able to encapsulate something that's based on only what I think you need to hear in order to be engaged.
I do it much better for other people's book.
Yeah.
It's so much easier. I said, okay, just throw it out there, send me the Word doc, and then I do something that's punchy. And sometimes I miss because I didn't read the book. So, the person tells me, and then I correct it. But for my book, it's like pulling teeth. However, where my woo works in marketing is give me a conference.
Yes.
Give me a signing. I was at Rare in London and somebody said, oh, but you're just by the elevator. People are going to pass like I said, yes, they all have to pass in front of me. And when I didn't have anyone stopping spontaneously, I was shameless. I was like, do you know me? Don't you know me? Come, I'll show you. And then I can pitch my books.
I so agree with that about conferences. And one of the reasons that we put off recording this, actually, because I think I contacted most of you like months ago about this, and I didn't want to record in the middle of the pandemic, because I feel like then what we're going to end up kind of missing over is all of that momentum that we get from being in person with each other. And it can feel a little bit like, woe is me, poor Woo doesn't get to, connect in person with people. But it really is a feed. Like, I haven't been to a conference in person in 12 months, and it is just sucking me dry. Like, it's sucking me dry.
Yeah, my last conference was in London exactly a year ago.
Yeah.
But I'm I'm on Discord. I'm on Facebook. You can PM me day and night. I mean, I do sleep once in a while, but I don't feel lonely at all. I mean, I'd love to hug some friends, but we have this chat room where we sprint and then we stop after 25 minutes and then we talk to each other for 5 minutes, sometimes 10, sometimes 20, and then we get back to wording. So, I mean, I do miss all the conferences I usually go to, but I survive because I find other ways of communication.
I miss the strangers. Like, this is so weird to say out loud. And I don't have any strangers in my basement. I don't even have a basement. But like, I miss getting to know brand new people, right? Because there's an energy in that for me that I haven't really had in the same way. That I agree. I love that we still have online and social media and everything. I wouldn't get by without it in the pandemic. But there's something about the energy of a room full of strangers that I miss. Are any of you not conference people? I'm such a conference person. I miss them so much.
I was going to say, when you mentioned, it was a couple videos ago, about not being in an airport for a while. And I was like, oh, it's been since February that I've been in an airport, and I hate to call it the juice, but the juice you get from being in a building full of potential people to engage with is just, there's nothing like being at the airport. And I miss that probably more than most things.
I just heard all the relators clutch their pearls collectively when we all started talking about how much we miss strangers.
I moved to a new town and I'm like, when is the coffee shop going to be open so I can meet my neighbors and meet the people in my neighborhood? Like, I'm really excited about that.
I'm not that way. I'm not that way as much as you guys are. I always joke that I have a relator woo, not like a regular woo. So as much as I love conferences, and those are the things that I do look forward to every year, I go with very much, it's probably my competition. I think I have a relator competition woo because for me, the strangers are a challenge, but not all of them. Very purposeful with the woo. I mean, when I go through the grocery store and stuff and, make people feel seen, because I want them to know that I value them and what they do. But going beyond that, that's when I do that at conferences.
Let me ask you, do you think, when I talk about rooms full of strangers or buildings full of strangers, I'm not putting my woo to everyone. Like,
right.
I don't think of that as an active thing so much as a passive energy.
Yes.
There. Is that
yeah.
What other
so
people...
do you still get that, Miranda? Like, do you think that you get energy from big crowds and rooms of strangers, even if you don't woo all of them?
I think that I enjoy being in large groups, and I do enjoy seeing people and watching them interact and stuff. I do like to pretty observant of body language and stuff. So I do like seeing all those things, and I do like watching people congregate. But I think it's just because I remember Shalene and I talking, she's like, sometimes I just want to sit there and watch people walk by, and just be in their space. And I'm like, I don't. Like, if I'm going, we're going to have a conversation. I'm going to, you know what I mean? So it's just very like, I don't know what that is.
I like that there's variation though. And this is part of why we have so many different people on at the same time, because hearing where there's variation is really important. I think being able to also distinguish that there are some behaviors, like Miranda was saying, her competition, right? Like when you have a woo that is affected by something that's narrowing, like a competition is a narrower. I have input, right? Connectedness, ideation, like those are all wideners. So like when you have something that's a narrower, it's going to impact the way that woo might work, or like a communication might work a little bit differently, right? Or, and this is something we haven't talked about a ton on the podcast because I'm not a huge Myers-Briggs fan, but like the difference between being an extroverted and an introverted woo. So like you can be an introverted woo, you can be an introverted communication. So if you were midline, right, where you're a little bit introvert, a little bit extrovert versus a full extrovert woo, you're going to be totally different even than, even than maybe what we're talking about. So it's so good to show that there's variation between those, because sometimes what happens is like if I hear another woo talking, I'm like, ooh, I don't do that. Does that make me a bad woo, right? Like, am I not using my woo correctly? Or is there something that, Shalina's doing that I should like level up in my woo? Well, let's look at what's around your what the context is. So that's a really, really great point. Because I'm high in woo, I'm probably more conscious than with other strengths that this strength can sometimes get a bad rap. And so I'm so glad that you stuck around with us to learn all about it. And hopefully, if you have it, you have heard the amazing ways that it can serve you in your writing career and even just in life. And hopefully, if you don't have it, you can see how the genuineness and interest in other people has come across in people who have woo as a winning others over as a strength. So I hope that you have enjoyed this. If you are interested in following us anywhere else, we do regular live coaching for free on our Facebook page. And please check out the Better Faster Academy on Facebook for that. Give us a like or a follow here. And please ask questions if you have them, or if you have a comment about how much woo you see in yourself or in someone else. We would love to hear about that and engage with you here in the comments. So please let us know what you think about winning others over. Even if it's, I don't understand it, please help me understand, Becca. I'm happy to do that because I love talking about woo. So I hope you've enjoyed this. We're going to see you next time on the QuickCast. Bye. Oh, and just to pop back in for a second, I forgot to mention something that Terry and I talked about in the talk show, which I just want to highlight. If you're a high woo and you have not yet heard about Clubhouse, please watch our video on Clubhouse for Authors. I'm going to put the link in the show notes here, and come and join the party. I'm telling you, I have not had such a positive experience on a social media platform in a long, long time. And the Clubhouse experience has been the most woo thing ever. And so please come and join us on Clubhouse. Please follow me, follow Terry, follow the Strengths Nerds room if it's available yet. And if it isn't, then wait, we'll continue to do that. We are going to run strengths talk shows on Clubhouse every once in a while. So far, we've been trying for Tuesday, sort of mid-afternoon, early evening in the US time zones. And so check us out, see if we have anything scheduled, but please do join us to talk about strengths or strengths for writers on Clubhouse. And at Becca Syme is my handle, and please find me and follow me. I'm super excited to talk more about strengths with you, especially on that platform live. So please do come and find us there, and we will see you officially now in the next QuickCast. Okay, bye for real. Bye.